A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Welcome, brothers and sisters, back to the Embrace review of a book entitled Double-Edged Slavery, How African American Muslims Have Been Colonized, written by Imam Luqman Ahmed. And this is a very important title, very important book that we've been reviewing over the past 2 months or so. In this book, I would describe as an analysis of the American Muslim community, in particular the African American Muslim and the convert Muslim, generally speaking. And before we jump into the discussion, I just wanted to give a brief introduction about Imam Luqman, for those who may not be familiar with him and his work. Imam Luqman is a convert himself. He was born here in the States. He's a graduate of Omdurman Islamic University in Sudan. He studied at Al-Haram, the Holy Sanctuary in Mecca, and he also attended Al-Qura University in Saudi Arabia. He has spent 20 years as an imam of a Muslim community in Northern California, and is the executive director of Lotus Tree Institute, an American Muslim think tank and research organization. And so this book, Double-Edged Slavery, alhamdulillah, there's a lot of benefit in this book. We as a group, and I don't mean to speak for everyone, but we as a group generally agreed that this work is so important to such an extent that it should be considered a required reading for new Muslims, for new Muslims coming into the community. This book did a social analysis, a psychological analysis of the state of Islam in North America, as I mentioned, amongst the convert community. And what we found, and the Imam will speak to this, inshallah, what the Imam has pointed out is that there's some major issues in the community, primarily stemming from pre-existing issues with that kind of carried over from slavery, from Jim Crowism, from institutionalized racism in this country. And it has in some ways crept into the Islamic community. And also he spends time, Imam Luqman spends time examining the immigrant Muslim community and how it interacts with the indigenous American Islamic community. And so without further ado, I wanted to ask the Imam if it's okay if we give the floor over to him to talk a bit about this work, this very important work. And also maybe we can spend some time with question and answer, inshallah, and delve a little deeper into some topics that maybe were not covered so much so in the book, inshallah. And so if you agree with that format, inshallah. Oh, we can't hear you. You're muted. You're muted.
Yeah, I just need that.
Okay. Alhamdulillah. Yes, we hear you now.
Alhamdulillah. Okay. Yeah. No, I like the format, and I, again, let me just say, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah. I want to thank you for having me on your show, and I'm really honored that you guys have actually read my book, because you're actually reading the book. Okay, so let me give you some background information about myself. One, I'm not a convert, but my parents were converts to Islam.
Okay.
And my parents converted in the 1950s, and they converted to actually Sunni Orthodox Islam. We weren't in the Nation of Islam. We weren't in the Ahmadiyya community. We weren't in any other community. And there's like 4 generations of Muslims in my family now.
Wow.
And my father's still alive. My mother, rahimahullah, passed away about 20 years ago. And we have a pretty good family. We believe in generational continuity, and but yeah, they were converts to Islam. I grew up as a Muslim, and I grew up in the Darul Islam movement, which is pretty basic, and so the type of Islam that I teach today is actually the same type of Islam that I was taught by my parents. I might have went to school and maybe added stuff and explained stuff, but basically it's the basic stuff, Quran, Sunnah. And we were fortunate in Philadelphia because Philadelphia, that area has a history of Orthodox Islam going back to the 1920s, even before. So this is like you're talking about 6 years after slavery. There were people back in the early 1900s. You had people in the Philadelphia area who were Sunni Orthodox Muslim or close to it. And Philly was one of the free states. So because there was no slavery in Philadelphia, a lot of ideas were allowed to flourish. And because Philadelphia was the birthplace of our nation, you got to keep that in mind too, that Philadelphia was the birthplace of our nation, and Philadelphia was a Quaker state owned by William Penn, who was a Quaker, and Quakers were in Philadelphia. And if you know the history, Quakers were one of the first Christian organized, they were the first organized Christian groups in the Americas to ban slavery for their members. So as soon as they arrived here from Europe, one of the places that they settled in was Germantown. That's where I'm from, Germantown, the area of Philadelphia. Quakers got to America. They said, "Listen, you're doing slavery, and if you a Quaker, you can't handle slave ship." And so, because of that, that was critical. That was critical. So when the United States, when we started to look for, because we're going for independence from England, so we were looking for what other kind of system are we going to have for our governance, if we're not going to follow the feudal system or the king system. England was on the feudal system, lords and serfs and that kind of stuff, and the king, and we were against that. So we started to look as a nation for other types of governance. And we leaned very heavily on the Ottomans, which was Islamic governance. Many people don't know our history or read our constitution. If you actually read, if you get it, I got a constitution somewhere. If you actually get a constitution of the United States of America and actually read the Constitution, you will see a lot of Islamic law in the Constitution. Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, they were very familiar with Islamic law. Franklin was very familiar with Islamic law, Muslim beliefs. He was like, if you actually Google, spiritual views of religious views of Ben Franklin, it's all Islam. All Islam, all Tawheed. So when they started America, they looked to Islamic law. And so when we declared independence, the first country to recognize our independence was the Kingdom of Morocco. It was Morocco. They were the first one before anybody. And that's why we had a good relationship with Morocco to this day. And so as Muslims, practicing Islam in the Philadelphia area, which was a Quaker state, it's still, they still own it. So Islam was allowed to flourish. That's the point I'm trying to make. Islam was allowed to flourish. The nation of Islam was allowed to flourish. The more science.
Assalamu alaikum. We lost your audio. No, we cannot hear you. Can anyone else hear the Imam?
No, we still can't hear him.
Maybe
No.
mute, unmute. Maybe that might help.
No.
Yeah, but it's not showing he's muted.
No.
Something's wrong with his microphone, probably.
Okay. Yeah. SubhanAllah.
Hey man, maybe log out and log back in. Sometimes that kind of fixes the issue.
Okay, let me text him. Hold on.
Okay, inshallah. Maybe the imam can call in to the Zoom instead of using computer audio. Call in. Yeah, let's see if the call into Zoom. Do we have the phone number, brother Kenneth, to give to the imam where he can call in?
I'd have to send it. Once.
SubhanAllah. Man, that was beautiful what we were listening to. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, we gotta finish that, inshallah.
SubhanAllah, it's amazing to see, listen to this because I'm in Philly. I've been here for quite some time now, and it's unlike any other place, especially to be Muslim. You never feel uncomfortable. There's Muslims all around you, and of all different, origins and race, and it's a very interesting place. And I think that learning about the history helps better understand how that translated into modern day. So if you are a Muslim, you should visit Philly to see how it is, to experience it, because it's so interesting.
It's very important. And, I think Michigan also has a deep history of Islam. I think I've read where Michigan was one of the first also to have Muslims. I think one of the oldest masajid in North America is in Michigan and in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, and Chicago as well.
Yeah, Chicago is huge. I remember visiting with my roommate because she was my chaperone when I was getting to know my husband. And she went into a store and her mind was blown. She's like, I saw Asian Muslims, I saw Black Muslims, I saw white Muslims, I saw so many different, and she's like, I never knew that it existed. I was like, yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. And so even for people who came from Philly, it was really an experience.
MashaAllah. Good.
I posted the phone number.
Yeah. So, brother Kenneth. So, if he calls the Tacoma number, he can still stay on the video feed. But
Yeah.
with him through. Okay. He doesn't need the Zoom ID number. He just calls him straight through the phone, right?
No, it should call through the phone. I think I might ask for like a
Yeah, it'll ask for the meeting
it's also
ID.
included.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna put that in there too.
Yeah, but I thought I saw that in the chat. I
can see he's trying.
Yeah.
Yeah, the meeting ID is 769060199. Okay, I got a number here.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, now I think it's to unmute *6. What is it to unmute?
Okay, I can hear you talking.
Okay, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, all right, so let me continue.
But there is an echo. Maybe you can mute your computer. Inshallah.
Okay, so I hear some feedback.
Yeah, so you need
The
to mute your
host
computer.
can mute him. Can someone mute him?
Yeah, I can. Let me see if I can mute the computer.
Imam, I think you have to turn off your computer audio in order to stop.
Oh, okay. Let me do that.
So,
Okay. Can you hear me now?
yes,
Absolutely.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to get through this, inshallah. Because, okay. All right. As long as you can hear me, I'm going to continue. Okay.
Yes.
So
Please.
the reason I wanted to give you the backdrop about Philadelphia, because it explains, as I heard the sister who lives in Philadelphia, it explains the spread of Islam in Philadelphia, but it also explains the religious thinking and the independent thinking and the independent spirit that existed in Philadelphia. Just like because history, even of Black Americans, it mirrors the history of our country. It mirrors the history of our country. Especially if you really understand our history and our laws and the Constitution, the history, and even if a lot of people did, they would hate the country so much, even despite slavery. If you really understood what they were trying to do when they started America. They were very aware. You had very aware people who are aware of religion, of Islam, of freedom, of the Caliphate, of order. They wrote about that. Hamilton wrote about that. They wrote about the order. They looked at the Ottomans. The Ottomans controlled a vast empire, and they had order, and they had tariffs, and they had imports, and they had economics, and they had laws, they had courts. Our court system is very much like the Ottoman court system. Very much. The way that we choose judges is very much like the early Abbasids. You have a chief judge, and then, except that you would have a chief judge, and then that chief judge would choose judges according to his particular madhab. That's how the Hanafi madhab became popularized amongst the Ottomans, because Abu Yusuf was like, okay, I'm the judge. Okay, we need a judge for this province. We need a regional judge. I'm going to choose these judges that follow my. That's like the guy said, I'm going to choose Republican judges. I'm going to use Democratic judges. It's the same thing. So that being said, we had scholars in the Philadelphia area going back. I mean, we're historians in our family, but I'm just saying. And so, growing up as a Muslim, we were exposed, my family was exposed to a lot of Muslims coming into the United States to study, because Dr. Ismail al-Faruqi, rahimahullah, he was the last governor of of Palestine. Before the Israelis took over Palestine, he was its last governor. He migrated out of there. He went to Eastern Europe, and he became an Arab nationalist because, of course, they want to get back Palestine. Then he moved to Philadelphia with Arab nationalism. But then he met my dad, different Muslims who were converts to Islam, and he couldn't believe it. Oh, well, they got converts in America. What the hell, right? And so he really helped the community, him and others, but he provides a scholarly chill to Islam in early Philadelphia. In fact, he started the first graduate program in the United States for Islamic studies in the whole country. The first graduate place you can go get a PhD in Islamic studies in the United States of America was Temple University in Philadelphia. He started that program. In fact, John Esposito was one of his early. So anyway, so the idea about the double-edged slavery, it was always clear as a child that there were two types of thinking. There was the immigrant thinking, okay, and there was American thinking. I just happened to grow up in a regular traditional Muslim household. Gotta get up, make salat, fast Ramadan, read Quran, all that. Go to masjid, but at the same time, I'm playing football, baseball, you listen to music, We know about poetry, all that kind of stuff. And my father happened to be an activist, so was my mother. So the idea of double-edged slavery was a book that I didn't really want to write. I did not want to write that book. I wasn't even thinking of writing the book. It was just really started after he wrote the book about the Salafis, and my issue, which is still my issue, was that as American Muslims, we have a certain culture that is not totally foreign to Islam, because a lot of times people come to the United States, they just assume you convert to Islam, you don't know God, you don't know honesty, you know nothing. You're just a heathen, you know nothing, you have no spirit, you just learned about being good to your neighbor because of Islam, and that's not true. None of that is true. None of that is true. This is a Christian nation. You got people all over in our history who are believers in God, Christian or not, have slaves or not. If you study your history, you look at what people say about in our movie show, it ain't all about Jesus. It's about God. You can turn on a cowboy movie, say, well, God bless you, sir. And it'd be a cowboy movie in the Wild Wild West. That's the true history of America. So when it comes to Islam, the practice of Islam, because converts are so enthusiastic about, a person will convert to Islam, change his name, change his diet, forsake his mother and father if they tell him that's going to make them closer to Allah, because the faith is high. And so we haven't always been treated right, commensurate with who we are as Allah's new guest. Sometimes it's on purpose, sometimes it's subterfuge, sometimes it's on purpose. Muslims have not dealt with racial issues. They just haven't. I mean, I'm not saying all Muslims around the world are racist, but as a group outside of America, no, we have not dealt with racism. We haven't. And so the world is way past us. It's past us. In America, it's still got racism, but we have dealt with racism. We've legislated about it. We've written books about it. We have movies about it. And we have Roots, for God's sake. The whole thing, the whole story. Everybody looking. We have Malcolm X in movie theaters. So we've dealt with those things. And so what happens when you have an immigrant population, and then you have a notion that has been taught that, your Islam is not good unless it's sanctified by some sheikh over here and this and that. And there's been no examination of the sheikhs. And then you got black self-hate. All that stuff put together, it produces a double slavery effect. Whereas blacks in America, you're a little less than. It's getting better, but y'all niggas. Still niggas. It's still that way. It's still that way. I don't care what you say. We can still get gunned down in the street and not very much happen about it. We can still last on this. And then you have a educated immigrant community, an affluent immigrant community come into your space. Alhamdulillah, welcome. But you still haven't got on the first page of addressing racism. So your whole religious psychology is that these black people, they're on the bottom. And so what happened to a lot of immigrants, they had to deal with what racial Americans had to deal with. What are you going to do with these free slaves? They're free. What the heck? We always thought they were going to be, they're uppity. And black immigrants had to deal with that too. What are we going to do with these free African-American Muslims? They free. They free. They can say what they want. Well, in our country, you can't say what you want. So that produces the double-edged slavery effect. So in the book, it's just basically analyzing the psychology, And actually, I'm very happy that you guys read the book, because the book was written 4 years ago, and I finished it about 3-4 years before that. I sat in my computer, seriously, and I've written articles, so many articles about that same topic. But I have always been a writer who, the mainstream, I got my readers, mainly the people that read me are mainly immigrants and white people. White people take me a little bit better, but for mainstream Black American Muslims, always been Imam just causing the fuss. It's not, leave it alone, blah, blah, blah. this and that. I mean, that just comes with the territory. So the fact that a group of people chose that book for their book club, I was like, wow, subhanAllah, what the heck? Like educate. No, I was very pleasantly surprised. But that's where, you know, and so all my writings, basically, not all of them, because as an imam, my community was 60 to 70% immigrants. Even now, I'm an imam in Toledo, Ohio. The people that attend my masjid are largely Arabs, to believe it or not. They're Arabs. You know? Because when you talk about racism to many Arabs, they don't want to hear it. Hell no. But many immigrants, they get it immediately. They know exactly what you're talking about. They're not offended. A lot of the imams think that they're going to be offended. Oh, and some do get offended. Oh, he hates Arabs. But the ones who are educated, who've been in America for a while, they get it. They understand. They know the problem. They know what they hear at home. They understand, and they're willing. So our approach to racism has to be delicate. And like I wrote that book, it would probably do a sequel, but I'm working on Muslim psychology right now. So I'm glad y'all pulled that book out of the, you know, because this is the first time I had a chance to discuss the book. Why I wrote the book, what I mean by the book, what it is, because ultimately, and I didn't put this chapter in there, I don't think. I don't even have a copy here, but ultimately, Black American Muslims are going to have to start looking at themselves as an independent civilization altogether. There's no other way forward. Because right now, Black American Muslim communities are on a steadily decline. We're actually facing extinction because generational continuity is at a standstill. Conversion is at a standstill. The last study that I remember that the Pew Foundation did about Muslims in America, it's called the American Mosque. It's still online. They conclude that for Black American Muslim communities, for every 10 people who convert to Islam, 10 more people leave Islam. And that's pretty accurate. That's just pretty accurate. It's too much stuff. It's too hard. And then as Black American Muslims, Muslims in general, we fail to make the argument that Islam is better on the ground. We failed. We failed. 9/11 put us back because then everything went to show. We got to show if we're going to feed food, we got to bring the cameras. And I'm just saying, as I was never a Christian, but I got Christian family. People see through that. Americans, we're pretty slick. Politically, we're way slicker than the Middle East. We're slicker. Our politics is slicker, smoother. I was in politics before I was in the imam. You know, our messaging is way better. This is Hollywood. So when we take on, we're going to out-message Americans and we want to make them look at us like that, everybody sees through that. I just want you guys to know that. Everybody sees through that. Everybody. They may not tell you because it's not politically correct. They say, listen, y'all Muslims are y'all really fake it. Because you want to talk about Malcolm X and stuff like that, and stuff, but you want to have, for example, you want to have what they call it, like interfaith about Christians, but like a third of your people was Christians. If you really want to know about Christianity, why aren't you talking to Black Muslims who were Christians? So of course, that's not your reason. You know, I'm just saying, I was deep in politics before I was in the imam. I was deep in politics. I used to help run political campaigns. I wasn't a politician. I was a guy behind the scenes that's doing the numbers and helping with the messaging. That's kind of stuff I used to do. So double-edged slavery was really kind of designed to kind of put everything out in the open, you know. And my basic methodology as an imam, as a speaker, is that, you know, I will tackle the tough issue. I had no problem. I will tackle the tough issue. I will say it in the hopes that somebody behind you will come with a softer approach. So, and I've made that clear in my writings. Listen, I'm going to kick the door open. Now you can walk in and help clean. That's my approach, because some conversations won't happen unless you kick the door open. And, you know, I'm a little older. So, of course, in Muslim America, you're concerned about your image and what they're going to say about you. And Imam, oh, Imam cuss, oh, he ain't no good Imam, all that kind of stuff. That just comes with the territory. I've been Imam for 30 years. That stuff really doesn't mean nothing to me. It don't stop nothing. This is me. I'm not saying out of arrogance. I'm just saying you wait till you're 61 and you have a couple heart attacks. Then you're really worried about how you going to stand with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're not really concerned about what people think, what they think of you. Did you say the right thing? Oh my God. Yeah, So it's not, I don't want you to think I'm arrogant like that. I might probably have a little arrogance, but a lot of the things that I write and that I say, that book was soft. That book was, all right. I was being kind in that book. I was being kind in the book. The next one is going to be, no, but I just want people to understand, get them thinking. We have to think independently. If you're Muslim in America, whether you're immigrant or the second generation, you have to think. We can't accept a level of thinking, a level of intellectuality that's lesser than we have in our own country. Come on, you can't have more. You can't have more censorship in Muslim America than you got in America proper. Come on, and so that's the kind of stuff we're dealing with. And so once you start looking at Muslim, not just black Muslims, it's not just a black thing, but black men, you deal with the black thing. But once you start looking at us as a new civilization, everything changes. The whole paradigm changes. It's going to take, I guess, another 3 or 4 years for people to get that. I started putting stuff out there about new civilization. I got a little book coming out probably in February about new civilization. I got another book dealing with the dilemma of Muslim converts to Islam. And to be honest, a lot of what I write in my books is stuff that I talk about in my talks. Because most people don't read books, but I do try to document. That's what double slavery was about, documenting the condition. So later on, I may not even be here. They can say, hey, this condition was documented, because that's what historians do. And that's how we have understood Islamic history until now. It were historians or regular Muslims who just documented what was going on. Ibn Kathir, even though he was a great exegete, a scholar of tafsir, and a scholar of hadith of the highest caliber, he was also a historian. So what scholars used to do is, he wrote because somebody has to record our history. Somebody has to record our history. I'm going to take this time and say, if you want to support any of my work, you can cash at me. You can also go to my Facebook page and contribute. But somebody has to record our history. That's very important. Somebody has to record our history. And because, now I'm preaching, so I really want you to stop me to ask and get some questions in. But because, we as a civilization, I'm not just talking about black Muslims, I'm talking about Muslims that live in America. As a civilization, we deserve to do civilizational stuff like everybody else. People record their history, they got leaders, they record like everything that happened in this presidential election, post-election, it's gonna be recorded. They're gonna write books on this is how, President Trump tried to stay in office. He did this, he filed this person said this. They're recording the names. In Islam, we recorded what happened. This is when the Prophet went to Medina. This is who was in charge of this. This was this battle. This battle happened over here this time. This person died in that. Zahabi wrote a book called, Zahabi, Ibn Kathir, Tabari, they all wrote history books. And so as American Muslims, hardly nobody's writing on history. And that's problematic. So when people don't have their history, there's nothing they can refer to. So if we argue about this or that today as Muslims, nobody can say, hey, we argued about that 20 years ago. We had that same argument. There's no place you can say, oh, well, what were black Muslims arguing about in 1970? Oh, wow, they were arguing about halal meat, mashallah. What are they arguing about? They arguing about halal meat. They have this article. What were they arguing in 1980 about following madhabs? My God, they're arguing about the same thing. What the hell? Same thing. Because there's no generational continuity, which is there's a section I think on that book on generational continuity. It may have been in that book. Anyway, that's a big issue with me, generational continuity. So hopefully, alhamdulillah, I want to answer some questions though, because I could keep talking about the book. I'm a preacher. But I really want to get into, I want to answer some of your questions that you have about the book and your group. I'll be more than happy to come on and talk about history, talk about the daughter of Islam, talk about stuff like that, because I know a lot of our history firsthand. It's not stuff I read. It's just that I did grow up in the bosom of Islam. It's very much. Many of these organizations, I remember when ICMA started. I remember I remember when ISNA started. I remember when CARE started. I remember. I was there, you know, when they used to have the first conferences and stuff in Philly when Dr. Faruqi was alive. I remember. I'm always busying around in the corner somewhere. I just happened to, you know, been an imam and now trying to, you know, I'm writing a lot of stuff that, you know, I got tons of notes. I got tons of testimonies, tons of stuff. I got so much stuff you wouldn't believe how much material, historical material, stuff. You know, I didn't set out to write the book. The book thing came as a result of me answering people's emails. What about the Salafis? Answering emails. They got this stuff called Salafi. And I'm like, what the heck? Oh, no, it's not. No. I'm writing the book. They asked me about, it's fatwas. Double S slavery came as a result of me examining fatwas. It started by me examining fatwas because you had different fatwas, religious edicts coming from abroad on people in America. I'm like, what the heck? What's this kind of fatwa? I mean, you know, because fatwa is just law. It's not scripture. It's law. It's a scholar saying, I think, based on what I understand of scripture, that this is haram, or this is this, or this is that. And so I started to have issues with some of the fatwa committees in Saudi. And alhamdulillah, they didn't really attack me because I studied there. I studied there, and I studied with some bigger sheikhs there. You know, I was never a Salafi, but I challenged the fatwa, because sometimes you do a fatwa that's like 2 paragraphs long, like the whole decision. You know, they make a fatwa in any court, it's like 20 pages, 100 pages, 500 pages, a ruling. They tell you all the reasons why, all the precedents, all the opinions. This is what, you know, Supreme Court makes a decision, man, it's like, it's long. So Islamic fatwas tend to be 2 paragraphs to change your whole life. Okay, Thanksgiving is haram. Stop it. Your mom's birthday is haram. You're acting like kuffar. Like, come on, really? That's a 4th grade fatwa. So that's where the book came about as a result of me looking at different religious decisions that came from abroad, and some of them were directed specifically at converts and Black Americans, but they didn't hold immigrants accountable for the same Islamic law, and that's racist. That's when your racism, yeah.
Yep. Assalamu alaikum, brother Imam. Jazakallah khair. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. I wanted to jump in for just a moment because I know that we had some guests that had some questions. Inshallah, I wanted to give. I think Sister Jackie's hand is raised. And I know Sister Rashida and some others have questions as well. Sister Jackie, did you start us off, inshallah?
Absolutely. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Jazakallah khair for your work, Imam. I agree 100% with you know, your own personal analysis of the book and the purpose of the book and how deeply you really just went into the issue. A lot of the book was like deep diving into the issue of this mindset and the historical and economic implications of how the Black Muslim American community is declining. And so The one thing I wish there was more of, personally, was the solution building aspect. So what we got out of solution building was, basically creating spaces where Black Muslim leadership can grow, and working on these, separate communities. However, I didn't know if maybe you had some other ideas. Personally, I recently wrote a paper for a grad school application about the economic development in Black communities. And it focused really on no interest loan programs for Muslim business owners that got reinvested back into the community once they were repaid. And also looking into Muslim organizations and trying to mirror the leadership based on the population in America, because we don't see enough diverse leadership in organizations. But I didn't know if you had any other, and thank you, because I did quote your book as well. But I didn't know if you had any other suggestions on things that we could implement to combat the systemic racism.
Do you really want to know?
Yep. Give it to me straight.
Okay. If you you can hear me, right? Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
So, okay, listen. I'm going to assume that this group, that you're open-minded, that you're mature Muslims, conscientious, and that you can handle the truth. I'm going to just make that assumption. Because there are solutions, but the solutions, many of them are considered to our people as radical. They're just too radical. They're too much like right, okay? Number one. Now, when writing the book, I wasn't really talking about solutions. I was basically wanting to kick the door open. That was my intention. I'm just going to let them know this is what it is. And I was hoping for reputation, even when I write articles on my blog at Luqman Ahmed. I got a blog. It's Luqman.Ahmed at WordPress.com. Or you can just look up Lotus Tree blog. It's like 200 articles. And so deal with a lot of this stuff. And so solutions, okay, I just gotta say it. Solutions in Islam. Now look at different problems in different states of mind. Okay, right now we're dealing with wild west. We're dealing with lawlessness. That's the biggest problem. That's one of the biggest problems. Lawlessness. That's connected to generational incontinuity. That's connected to solving regional problems. That's connected to marriage, divorce, child custody. These are things that really affect the family. All that is connected to lawlessness. Most people don't have any math. That's simple as that. No Muslim society has ever thrived without some people being responsible for outcome, being responsible for solving problems, being responsible for settling issues, disputes. No society, nowhere on the planet, nowhere. Even in America, there's people, if you call the police, you go to a judge, I will see you in court. Somebody, if you're in Congress, somebody got to make a decision. Okay, listen, we're going to vote on this. They just voted on the stimulus bill. Okay, they had to vote. They negotiated. They voted. They said, okay, yeah, we approve. President signed. That means people get money. People get money now. Now, you agree, may not agree, not enough money. They got other stuff attached to the bill. But there's a system of governance in America. Whether it's fair at any given time or not fair, it is a system. You go to jail. Okay, you're under arrest. This is how much your bail is. If you pay 10% of that, you're going to get out. You got to go to court on next Tuesday. If you don't get it, we're going to warrant for your arrest. Somebody, it's something. It's not like, okay, you're arrested and you just, where you at? Where you at? Oh, good, he's under arrest. No. So in Islam, it's the same thing. You have to keep in mind that much of the systems in the Western world are based in part upon Islam. They didn't have anything. They were kings. It was a kingdom. It was knights and serfs and kingdoms, and it was bad for people in Europe. Not that it was that much better in the Islamic lands, because governor is only as good as the governor. If he's not just, he's not just, no matter what. But I'm saying that when they look for a system, the system of education, of college, the word college comes from the Arabic word kulliyah. It's an Arabic word, college, because when they started to develop like universities like Azhar, when it was started by the Fatimids, they use that system of college. Okay, you're going to study now. You're going to study fiqh. You're going to study usul, the college of usul. The college of usul is fiqh. The college of ulum al-hadith. That's your specialty. They started that, so we copied. We called it the college of of math, the college of architecture. We started. So I'm just saying. So you have a Muslim population in America. You got numbers of people. They're basically working with no system. There's no system. There's no system. And so it's going to take a generation, I think. But from my perspective as an imam, this is what I've come up with. And listen, I believe that we have to really start to, I'm going to say, my personal feeling is that, okay, people should find imams that they agree with. They think I can support that imam and be part of his congregation, even online, and be part of his congregation. Because imams who really know, have ideas what to do, we don't have resources. That's the biggest issue. It's still dislike for an imam to have any resource. Now, I understand people who can't be full, might have squandered money, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, I get that. That's not cool. But I'm saying you have imams, you have plenty of imams now who are able, capable, ready, know the law, like we have on our Imams Roundtable, but we don't have resources. So the bulk of the Muslim community are just islands unto themselves, bickering, trying to understand, and that's not the way it works. Muslim civilization is like, okay, listen, he's in charge. Okay, if he's that bad of a man, eventually he's going to die, and it'll be somebody else, right? But we're going to support that imam, that masjid, that group of people, so that we will have some governance for our children. So now, what we can do right now is limited. We have a lot of talented people. I believe that some of the younger folks are talented, but the way it works is what a lot of black people don't like. They don't like nobody telling them what to do, and we definitely don't like to see any of our own in charge. We're programmed. We're programmed that a hadith sounds better if it's from somebody foreign. Okay, so that's part of my take. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. On that note, I wanted to ask this question about because what I'm gathering is that there's a leadership void in the community, which is a root of a lot of the problems that we're having. But we used to have a very strong structure of leadership, especially when you look at the Nation of Islam. I know that the Aqidah is not on point, but in terms of the structure, in terms of the economic independence, in terms of the discipline, in terms of the connection to the broader community, the black community, the disenfranchised, the oppressed community, Nation of Islam had a lot of clout. They were authentic. They were respected. Do you think that we could benefit in adopting that type of approach today, or is that, or has that approach expired, in your opinion?
That's a good question. I think that the Nation of Islam approach is pretty much on point. Any organization that was indigenous and did not pay homage to a foreign group or foreign government or foreign shit, it always works better for the indigenous people, no matter what it is. Whether it was Marcus Garveyism, whether the Nation of Islam, whether it was the Moore Science Temple, whether it was the Ansar Allah community back in the 80s with Dr. York, anything that's domestic Because once you look at yourself, hey man, we are free, we're domestic, we live here, and you just can't pop in and tell us what to do. Just because you just can't get on one guy because you're foreign, you come in the masjid, you running stuff. No, it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. Daughter Islam. So all those groups had a lot of benefit. The nation, especially because it got big, you know, the basic thing. I think that's the way to go. I think that's what you're going to see, inshallah ta'ala. Even as an imam, you know, I'm an imam locally, I'm an imam at large, but I have people that be doing part of my community. I'm trying to expand. I'm going to be expanding I don't want to, so that's why I'm slow about it. I'm going to be expanding my own ministry because there's nothing you can do if you don't have congregation. If you don't have a congregation, your civilization is not going to last. That's anywhere. That's ants and bees and stuff, and turtles, elephants and stuff. I mean, I'm just saying, you have to have congregation. You have to have critical mass.
Yes.
Critical mass, you know, and just our people, as black people, we have our own mythology. We know that if we have any one imam or two imams, any kind of notoriety, the traditional thing for us to do is to knock them down. That's part of the self-hate programming. You know? So, but yeah, I think that the nation. But let's look at this again. Look at the programming. Okay. My family has a treaty with the Nation of Islam. We had one since the 1970s because we used to fight the nation. I mean, literally at war with the Nation of Islam. The daughter of Islam, but literally, that's a whole story. But we made the treaty. When we made the treaty, I have since never ever attacked the Nation of Islam anytime. Even though I don't agree with all the Aqidah, I never attack Farrakhan. I don't attack the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I don't attack it. I don't. Because I honor street. Farrakhan has prayed behind my father and showed him respect. Right. So I'm just saying, in Islam, we believe in code. You just don't, because somebody say, I can't be your friend. That's you saying it. I can't. You know. So some of our issues with the nation, and yeah, I understand the Aqidah, but I'm not talking about that. But some of our issues with the nation are stuff that's inspired by people outside of us. So we make friends based upon what the Sheikh said. Right? You can't let nobody come from outside tell you who can be your friend. That's crazy. But anyway, yeah. So I think, but a lot of the animosity towards the nation. It's a lot of times these things aren't being born. It's not that Imam sat down with the Nation of Islam and said, listen, what are our differences? What can we do to help black people in the neighborhood? We ain't had that conversation. We haven't even had the conversation with a white supremacist that we supposed to be against them now. And I understand that. But it ain't like we sat down with white supremacists and said, listen, what's the issue? So, because we both live in America, what's your issue with us, as black people, as Muslims? What is it? We don't have other people make these decisions for us. And once you understand that, then you're talking something different. And so, like I said, so the solution is bold. It's bold stuff. And a lot of people were not really ready to take those kind of bold steps because you have to really question. You got to question people's motives. You have to question why. Scholars, for example, you want to talk about birthdays and stuff. Okay. You want to haram grandma's birthday. Like dude, you really going in West Field because the grandma ain't did nothing to you. All we doing is taking grandma out to dinner and buying some lobster and wish her happy birthday, but because she's 90 years old. Y'all haraming that. But you say nothing about the liquor stores in the black neighborhood owned by Muslims. You're selling crack pipes, meth pipes, baggies, maybe even selling dope out the Muslim store, liquor all over. You're selling that to the very black people in the neighborhoods where that little storefront Muslim is trying to thrive. I've lived it as an imam, trying to give dawah. They said, Imam, you giving dawah, you calling about Islam, man, your boys run all the liquor stores around here. And they go to your masjid. We have to understand. So that's a certain amount of disingenuousness that I think, you know. And so if you talk about these kind of stuff, it's going to cost. So everybody, so a lot of our problem now is really having the courage to even talk about issues that we've kept under wraps.
Alhamdulillah. I wanna give I think Sister Rashida had a question. We're gonna try to keep, I think we're kind of running out of time. I want to give as many people as possible a chance to ask you a question because we don't have any opportunity with you. Alhamdulillah. Sister Rashida, did you have a question?
Yes, I did email it to you guys a little earlier, but I'll go ahead and read it out. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Brother Imam, jazakallah khair for joining us. We really appreciate you being here. So my question is, in the book, you mentioned seeking contemporary rulings from indigenous scholars to take the environment into consideration. So we've been talking about fatwas, right? So does this apply to seeking Islamic knowledge, like studying to be a teacher or an imam, etc.? Or do you feel that there are cases where one should study abroad? Inshallah.
Very good question. That's a very good question. I think, studying abroad it's a lot of benefit in it. I can't speak for now. Like, I'm 61, okay? I first went overseas in my teens. I was in my teens. I'm 17. I'm a youngster. So it was different then. There was no internet. There was no showing off. You know, you were out with, like, we were in the desert, man. It was like in a real desert, man. Like, really, like you could die out in that joint. And it was like that. So the benefit was immense. There was nobody to show off for. Nothing. You're there, you know. And my father made me go there. He literally made me go there, and so it was a different type of scholarship that you're getting into. Even the scholars there, where I studied in Sudan, they were traditional scholars. They were even just now starting to use the Western university system. They didn't even use it at Umar University then. It was the old sheikh system. It was the old system. Your shuyukh, you weren't in there playing around. You weren't in there to get your ijazah. It wasn't like that. It was like, dude, we trying, you know, I went to a village called Abdul. It's in the Jazeera province of Sudan. It's next to this town called Hisa, and it's still there, and the village is still there. And Jazeera is still in Sudan. So Hisa was a town about 400 years old. And next to that town was a village called Wad al-Fadni, which is about 400 years old. I'm talking about mud houses. They only had, the only place in the village that had lights, electricity was the masjid. That was the only brick building. Everything else is mud houses, period. Right? But the village was dedicated to the preservation of the memorization of the Quran. Like the village, the whole village, like entire village. The entire village is dedicated to the preservation of the Quran and memorization of the Quran. And every single person in that village was hafiz of Quran. Everyone, every woman, every man, everybody, hafiz. The whole village exists for that one purpose. That's all. People come there from different places, and you stay there. You learn Quran, you learn recitation, and there wasn't no fancy hotel stuff. And then there was another village called Hisa. Outside, you had to come through Hisa to get the Wad al-Fadni, and Hisa was originally set up to defend the village. Like a whole village of people. What's our job? It's to defend that village where they memorize Quran. It's going back to the time of the British. When British troops was in Sudan. It's going way back. And so it was a traditional thing. So if you go overseas now, it's a good thing. Basically, you want to learn Arabic. You want to learn Arabic, okay? And then go through whatever course, whether it's Medina, whether it's Azhar, whether it's the University of Malaysia, South Africa, Al-Qura. You're only going to get a certain amount, but at least you get the basics if you want to pursue scholarship. If you want to pursue scholarship later, and then it takes time. You have to, and I always advise people, if you want to pursue scholarship, do it for the sake of Allah, because otherwise you're not going to get it like that. You're not gonna see, oh, I'm gonna be like this Sheikh. You're not gonna be like that Sheikh if you don't really have you have to love the knowledge for the knowledge. It can't be you want to learn it so you can say, look at me, I speak Arabic. It can't be. And so now it's a lot of show. And so that really hurts scholarship when there's a lot of show. Because you're showing off and doing this and then just intellectual dishonesty. But I mean, the way we were taught, I just happened to slip in. There was no internet, there ain't no nothing. Ain't no phone, no cell phone, man. Where I was, bro, I mean, I'm just saying, not me, but anybody who studied during that time, where I was, man, if you die in that desert, man, if you die out there, man, you're just going to be dead for a minute. So somebody find you, get to know your parents, connect to your people. I used to have to go all the way to Khartoum to make a phone call to my parents. I mean, I had to get on a bus, go to another city, go to the post office and get the phone, and hopefully that line is clear. But so it's a different type of study. Now everything is all glitter. Brothers go overseas, they say, I'm going overseas to study, yeah! So it wasn't like that during I'm not knocking that, I'm just saying that there was no faddism attached to learning, and historically, strategism wasn't attached to learning. Historically, if you studied traditional knowledge, man, you were poor. You were hungry sometimes. If you look at the histories of Imam Ahmed, Imam Shafi'i, man, he was persecuted, man. He wasn't the big sheikh like that during his lifetime. They were going to kill him in Yemen. They brought him to Yemen in chains. People throwing tomatoes at him and stuff. Imam Shafi'i, the big sheikh, they were going to kill him, and he was about to be executed until Muhammad Shaybani said to the Khalifa, he said, listen, man, you're going to execute one of your relatives. And the Khalifa said, what? Relatives? Yeah, Imam Shafi'i, he's his grandfather, your grandfather is the cousin. You're going to kill your own people. And he said, that saved them. Then he said, okay, well, he got to go. Imam Shafi'i, Imam Shafi'i, he's one of the founders of what's called Usul al-Fiqh. He's the one who made fiqh into a separate discipline. Imam Shafi'i. So, but while he was alive, he wasn't celebrated like that. Imam Ahmed, while he was alive, he wasn't celebrated like that. He died, he was on house arrest. Ahmed. So I'm just saying that it's different, but it's a good idea. But if you're going to do it, just go. Make sure you master the Arabic language. Go to whatever university, have good courses. There's plenty of good scholars all over the place, everywhere. Most of the better ones, they're not famous like that. They're just like, they ain't out there like that. Most of the better scholars, they live in a neighborhood somewhere. They go to a masjid somewhere in that neighborhood, and they might be writing books left and right. There are scholars of usul who you won't even know them unless you buy Arabic books. They edit the books. It's now like, you see a sheikh there, he's a big sheikh. They live somewhere in Egypt, in Cairo, in the neighborhood. Don't give no speeches. If you want to study with him, you got to go to the masjid, then you go pray at. You might have a little, I'm saying, the bulk of your great scholars of today are those types. Seriously. They're not famous like that. They got some famous ones, and I studied on a couple of famous ones, but most of the, one of my favorite scholars that I studied with, he was my neighbor too. My neighbor, man. He lived on the mountain where I lived, man. Like, teaching those guys right there. They because most scholars who have that understanding, they're with the people. That's what gives scholars that edge, because they're with the people. They actually live amongst the people. They deal with people's issues, like real stuff. Like, man, I have a husband, won't give me my dowry, or my mom won't let me get married. I'm telling you that in real life, most scholars of Islam, they live amongst the people, because everybody knows that the Prophet lived amongst the people. We know that the Prophet lived amongst the people. Go ahead.
Jazakallah. I wanted to ask if anyone had maybe a closing question or anything, because I think we're kind of running out of time, and I hope that we can do this again, inshallah. Maybe
anytime you contact me, I'll be more than happy to come in. I'm just so elated that y'all was reading my book, man. I'm like really Everybody got to be like subhanAllah, man.
Alhamdulillah.
I'm glad that you found some benefit in the book, you know, and I'm glad that you guys have been discussing the book and the issues in the book, and I appreciate it. Just keep a lookout for the other ones I got. I have a couple more, but they're books about marriage, and I have one coming out about the dilemma of Black American converts or American converts to Islam. That's longer. It's longer than double-edged slavery. But support my work. Support my work. I got some stuff about marriage, killing marriage. There's little booklets, but you know, but we have to get to the bottom of this. So anyway, alhamdulillah.
Okay. Does anyone have a question that they didn't get to, Brother Abdul Rashid? I have to call on you. You're largely responsible for tonight's event. So alhamdulillah.
You're giving me too much credit. You're giving me too much credit. The Imam said a lot of great things.
Yes.
One of the questions, I guess a question I have is that when you talk about creating this new civilization, and I think you touched upon it a little while before, but how are we going to create this new civilization without the help of the immigrant Muslim community?
Very good. Well, the immigrant Muslim community, there are a lot of there's a lot of people within the immigrant Muslim community who understand exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about creating civilization, because many of them have been through colonization themselves. Many of them, they only got their independence in since the 1950s, 1960s, some even as late as the 1970s. You know, if you're from Morocco, if you're from Algeria, if you're from Egypt, if you're from Sudan, if you're from even the Gulf, you understand about colonization and people ruling over you. So they get it. And so I think that you're going to see emerging a civilization of Muslims who are not bound by color. Right? Like I have an organization I started called Mosques Without Borders, and that's the basis of it. So I think it's coming. And I think because I deal with a lot of immigrants, like I said, I have a lot of immigrants in my masjid, and you know, and I talk about racism, I talk about everything, and they don't blink. They say, man, we get it. And sometimes I talk about immigrants, this is what y'all got to do, this and that, and they get that. I talk about this is what black people got to do, they get that, because they're Muslims. We're bound by brotherhood. We are bound by Islam. We are bound by brotherhood. We are bound by Islam. If you bind yourself by Islam, not by sectarianism, not by this group, then we are bound by La ilaha illallah. And there's a lot of Muslims that get that. A lot of them add on stuff. No, we got to be this. I got to be Sufi. I got to be Salafi. You got to follow this and that. You got to be Ash'ari. You need to be this. Shafi'i. And I am a Shafi'i. No. But the Shafi'i is not the foundation of my religion. The foundation of my faith is La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasul. And so there are Muslims that get that from all walks of life, rich, poor, black, white, Egyptian, Pakistan. There's some who get it. And I know, because I know that. You know, we have these conversations. So I think that's the future for Islam in America. But I think because we understand the terrain, like the Black American Muslims, even white American, we understand our terrain. This is the country, we've been here for a long time. So we understand our terrain. So it becomes necessary. That's just Islamic civilizational law. If you want to, but you got to understand the terrain you're dealing with. So you always look at for the people who understand the terrain, or to prepare the terrain for somebody else. And so that's why I say the double-edged slavery thing is, you know, we can't be slaves. I mean, there's just another level of civilization. It just is. It's just there. It's like, you don't have to sit here. You can go here. There's another civilization. There's another level. There's another level of thinking, another level of conversation. And a lot of people, it's going to catch them off guard because it has been understood across the board that, especially Black American Muslim converts, that there's no intellectual acumen in them that could even lead to Ummah. So the idea has been heretofore, Black American Muslims, ain't nothing they gonna know that we don't already know. They can't tell us nothing. There's no new discoveries there. There's no gold under them wrappers. And I'm saying there's gold under them wrappers. You just don't know the gold. But there's gold in this soil. There's a purpose in the law having people come through slavery to stay in Islam. That's a purpose. There's a purpose why that chain was not broken from the time that they were praying on the ships while he chained up and somebody calling the Adhan on the ships. In the time you had a slave that fought in the Civil War, the time that you had slaves in the South who still prayed, and the master, there's a purpose for that. And, so I think that's going to be the new. So the immigrants aren't excluded, The immigrants who know, they get it. They get it. I know so many immigrants. I've raised immigrants. Literally raised them in the masjid from the time they're 8, 9 years old. They went on to become doctors or whatever, from our masjid. And they get it. They get it. When I talk about niggas, they get it. I talk about pimps and hoes, they get it. When I talk about crack and stuff like that, they got problems with drugs and stuff too. So they get it. So believe me, So if you listen to me talk or read an article, you may think, oh, he's against immigrants. That's because you only read one article. I can't help that. So that's where a lot of people miss me. Imam Luqman is against the immigrants. He's against the Arabs. No, I'm not. But like I said, I'm 61, so I'm not really going to flinch too much about what people say about my writings. I'm sorry. I don't say it arrogantly. I'm just no. I got to answer to a lot. But yeah, just my good question.
Okay.
Brother Kent, you got a question?
Yeah.
Brother Abdul Rashid kind of already asked it, but I can ask it kind of a different fashion.
Yeah.
Off Imam Luqman, I wanted to say that I really, really enjoyed your book. I was telling brother Lonnie that I think that your book should be like a required reading for Embrace from now on, because a lot of the points you make in the book are reasons we founded Embrace in the first place. Some of the main reasons we founded this organization. This organization is meant to be a convert-led initiative that empowers Muslim converts, gives them a voice and gives them a platform, to be those leaders and to have a community that best reflects them. Right. So like everything you were putting in the book, I was just like, man, it's almost as if I'm reading my own thoughts, mashallah. But what I wanted to ask was kind of like when you mentioned creating our own Muslim civilization. I wanted to ask you to kind of elaborate more on what exactly you think that looks like. Are you suggesting like the masjids are doing, where you have like the Arab masjids and the Pakistani masjids, or like you suggesting like something a little bit more like intricate? Exactly how does that look?
Well, I believe it's going to take a generation, and for myself as an imam, like writing this book and writing these writings have created a situation for me personally, because if you write about this and write about this, you say you should do this, then sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala communicates to you that, man, you gotta do something about this. And there's nothing you can do. You don't want to say to people, Allah's guiding me to do that. They say, oh, who the hell do you think you is? But after a while, you figure that, listen, man, it is what it is. And so I started an organization called Mosque Without Borders. Mosque Without Borders, which is actually, I'm not even finished setting it up, but it's an online community of Muslims who don't want to be stigmatized by any of these isms. It's the people who just, that's the basis of it. And I think that in terms of civilization, it's not going to be me it's going to be people that come after me. I believe Allah knows best. I believe that, Muslim civilizations, they're started by people who just say, okay, we're going to plant this seed. And inshallah, so my job is to plant the seed. I think, we need to have a new civilization of Muslims from the West. They could be born here, they could be new here, but they have to be independent. Just like when the United States of America, when we established the United States of America, we said to the whole world, okay, we might take something you got, but this is our joint right here. This is us. This is America. You ain't going to come in and tell us how to run our country. And I think American Muslims can say, this is the United States of America. You can offer suggestions, but man, we are going to put our heads together, have our own leaders. We're going to support them and create systems for us. We're going to have schools. We're going to teach them history, Black American history, Muslim history, the good of it or the bad of it. We're going to teach them ethics. We're going to teach morals. You're going to get morals and ethics. So if you come out of a Muslim school, you automatically know, hey man, I'm not going to open up a liquor store, man. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to sanction that. Because we're Muslims, we don't do that. And so that's what I mean by new civilization. A new civilization. And once you have a civilization that's your own, other people, immigrants, and then you're going to have the politicians that come and try to take it over. Hopefully, I might not be around by then, but I'm just saying, you're going to have that. You're going to have people to make money. You're going to have that. You're going to have the fags come in. You're going to have all that. All that's going to happen. That's happened. But I believe there will be a core of people who are holding fast to the basic of this deen, because we're bound by the brotherhood. We're bound by the brotherhood. If you be around Muslims, you understand what I'm talking about. There's a brotherhood and sisterhood that transcends everything. Everything. And Allah and the Prophet said, Arwahul mu'minina kajanudin majannada ma ta'arafat minha tulifat wa ma tanakarat ikhtalafat. That the souls of the believers are like conscripted armies. When they know each other, they connect. When they don't, they repel against each other. And I believe in scripture. That's obvious. I believe in scripture. I believe in hadith. I believe in what the Prophet said would happen. And so you got to keep in mind that as far as brotherhood and sisterhood, like me knowing, I know thousands of Muslims, I've been Muslim a long time, there's a certain spirit of brotherhood that exists no matter where you go. No matter where you go in the world, man. You can go to Mecca, you can go to Africa, you can be at the airport, man. There's a certain thing of the common brotherhood, a spirit that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps going. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said there will be people, Yawm al-Qiyamah, yufituhum al-anbiya wa ma hum bi-anbiya. There are people on the Day of Judgment who prophets will be jealous of them even though they themselves aren't prophets. And they said, who are they, Ya Rasulullah? Who are they, a messenger of Allah? And he said, al-mutahabbuna fillahi wa hum ala manabirin min nurin yawm al-Qiyamah. He said, these are the people who love each other for the sake of Allah, and they will be on pillars of light on the Day of Judgment. And if you want to go deeper, I don't know the time's running out, but if you want to go deeper, the Prophet talked about this kind of stuff. He talked about it even back then. He said there were times, one time he said, I wish if I could only see my brethren. He said, if I only see my brethren, they said, Alasna ikhwanuk ya Rasulullah. Are we not your brethren, O Messenger of Allah? He said, no, you are my ashab, you are my companions. But my brethren are those people who will come later, and they believe in me even though they have not seen me. And so the Prophet talked about this time we're living in right now. This time we're living in last days. I'm not saying it's tomorrow, next day, next week, but we are living. The signs are all there. Allah's telling the signs are all over the place. They're all everywhere. So you can't ignore the signs. The Prophet said, these are the signs. This time will come. And you just happen to be living during that time and just ignore it all and say, no, it's not. No, man, it's right there in front of you. Allah's showing you left and right. This one, the diseases, the coronavirus, the sex, the lying, the mistrust, everything is there. And when that time comes, in the first hadith of Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman, he said, Ya Rasulullah, if that time comes, what should I do if I'm living it? He said, find yourself a just imam in the community of people. You find yourself somebody. That way, I'm with these groups, and they doing right, we doing right. Because that's a protection. But of course, so there's different things. There's a lot of elements in this new civilization thing. But yeah, you gotta, because the chain of transmission is broken. Nobody owns, especially Black Americans. Nobody's owning us. Nobody's saying, okay, listen, we're from Senegal. We own y'all. Y'all from us, and therefore we're bringing the state to help you. I mean, you know, anybody else, if you're from Liberia, if you're from Nigeria, you can always go to Nigerian embassy and say, well, I'm Nigerian. Yeah, of course, there are people, and Pakistan, anybody, but nobody owns us. The chain was broken. We were let go. You understand? That's a civilizational reality. When that happens, there's laws involved. We follow Sharia. There's civilizational laws. If you let your people go, listen, we ain't got nothing to do with y'all. Y'all somebody else's slaves now. That's all well and good, alhamdulillah, but that cuts the chain. I mean, we all uniting, homie. We all uniting. You ain't ours now? No. You said we go, we slave, right? Okay. Well, they freed us, so we can establish our own civilization. That's in front of the law. Some things are legal in our laws. I mean, they're like in the law. They're built into the laws, not so much somebody want to be so bold to start a new civilization. If you're disconnected from the other one, you have the permission to establish because you're ummah. You're ummah. You're still ummah. You have to act as an ummah. Got to act as an ummah. As an ummah, well, we are descendants of slaves, and we deal still with a certain amount of racism. No problem. No problem with that. And we're not a colony. You treat us as a colony. If we're going to be a colony, then okay, we're a colony of the Muslim world. Start paying our imams. That's your start. Build some masjid. We're a colony. Build me a masjid. Build a school. Pay our imams. It's not. We need this. We need this. We're a colony. If we're not your colony, I mean, you don't got to do nothing. We all unite. I mean, you can't dictate stuff and not pay. You know, nobody does that. And so some of that is built into the racism, that the money part of it, and the self-hate. It's a lot of stuff, but you know, I mean, it's just a lot of issues coming out of that book. But basically, new civilization, I think it's going to take a generation.
Alhamdulillah, Brother Imam, we want to thank you for
brother,
joining us tonight and for leading this discussion. Alhamdulillah. We thank you for your writings and your books, and inshallah, we will follow up and look at additional works that you've put out.
You're welcome to contact me anytime. I like the fact that you got the child youngsters. I mean, I'm not saying, you know, I'm not trying to be dismissive, but I love to see people of your age group. That gives me a lot of hope, man.
Yes.
Allah, it gives me a lot of hope.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. It's good to know that we got somebody coming up on the rear. So inshallah, stay in touch, brother, and thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And you know, just Google me, you find some of my other books out there, inshallah.
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 Jazakallah khair. Thank you, brother. So with that, inshallah, we will close out for tonight. I want to thank everyone for joining for this special event. Imam Luqman Ahmed joining us and discussing his book and other things, and for really giving us, you know, a lesson on the history of Islam and helping us to understand where we are, where we need to go, inshallah. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless this gathering and to guide us to the straight path and give us success in this life and the next. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.